And that's on burnout. It's a dangerous and scary word that has become more and more common in our fast paced, work oriented world. Our idea of success is tied to always being busy, doing whatever it takes. But where's the limit?
Hi, I'm Pam, a psychology student, and I'll share to you how mindfulness can change your life. Online classes. I felt those too. It's a very new setup that is not only mentally, but socially and emotionally draining. As much as we identify how suffocating this new adjustment is for our overall well-being, it is important to be kinder to yourself. Adapting to a new way of living takes time. Throughout quarantine, my mental health and personal progress were never linear. And that's okay. A concept that I habitualized even before the pandemic began that has led me a greater path for self-development is called mindfulness. What is this?
To simply put, it is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment. Here are some of the mindfulness habits that I did before the pandemic started and I continue to do now that kept me sane in these trying times. Journaling, working out, going for a run, reading a book, feel feelings, listening to a podcast, reduce social media exposure, and I also try to meditate. Along my journey, I've noticed that the happiest people are happy. Not because they don't have issues or fears, but because they're able to live without attaching to those things. They can stay focused on what they want to create because they see and detach from the things that would otherwise hold them back.
So what I've said are the benefits of practicing mindfulness. But do you know what's going on in our brains when we practice it? Here's how.
Scientists have used MRI or magnetic resonance imaging scans to see how the brain changes when people practice mindfulness, yielding some fascinating results. Evidence suggests that particular areas of the brain may either shrink or grow in response to regular mindfulness practice. But brain volume increases in these regions from which the most relevant were mindfulness and memory. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure responsible for learning, storage of memories, spatial orientation, and regulation of emotions. Mindfulness and empathy, temporoparietal junction, the area where temporal and parietal lobes meet and which is responsible for empathy and compassion. Mindfulness and creativity, the prefrontal cortex. It is the area of your brain responsible for things like planning, problem solving, and controlling your emotions. All these three regions of the brain will make the gray matter in this area become thicker after practicing mindfulness, showing increased activity in these areas of thought. On the other hand, the one area whose brain volume decreased was for mindfulness and stress, amygdala, an almond-shaped structure responsible for triggering the fight or flight response as a reaction to a threat, whether real or only perceived. Here, the decrease in gray matter correlated with changes in the levels of stress. The smaller their amygdala became, the less stressed people felt, even though their external environment remained the same. It proved that the change in amygdala reflected a change in the people's reactions to their environment, not in the environment itself.
Wonderful, right? The more I practice mindfulness, the happier and healthier I become. Knowing its biological explanations convinces me more to continue these habits. The information that I presented to you are the things that I only know as a psychology student. That's why I'm bringing in a special guest for this talk that can show us a psychologist's perspective for mindfulness.
Many people actually do not consciously live at the present moment. I think that is also the gift that mindfulness brings to each one, and that is why it is highly relevant on a day-to-day basis, because many people already forget that in the new world context. It is the practice of mindfulness that allows them to let go of whatever it is that is preoccupying their brain and allow them to fully be present to what gifts are being brought at that very moment. Try to simplify the concepts of mindfulness through many practices. So we call them many practices that we share to children and adults alike, so that the principles of mindfulness are simplified and are made easier to apply on a day-to-day basis, so that practicing the entire concept of mindfulness becomes easier to grasp for each individual under our division. We try to bring to public and simplify the complex or the seemingly complex, but actually very simple principles of mindfulness, so that it becomes easy for people to practice and to understand.
Mm-mm.
Best way to combat burnout is to prevent it. And I think the key word there also is structure. So it's important for you to structure your time, plan your day. Many individuals actually feel overwhelmed, and that's normal, especially in a transition period. So just like all our students entering into the new school year, especially because we have a new platform for learning, it's really an adjustment for everyone. So I will share that I actually simplified basic principles of, well, cognitive behavioral therapy, and actually combined with mindfulness. So here are my three COVID-19, JQL COVID-19 survival tips. So first is choose your change. So people do not really realize that in this life, we actually have choices, and we have the power to change who we are. So it's a good practice for us to see this quarantine as an opportunity to recreate ourselves and determine the kind of transformations that we would like to make in our own lives. So that's the first tip. The second would be to learn to accept, embrace this new normal, and fully live in the present. You have to start by learning to accept these things. So, and it will also make the process easier for you and lighter. And the last tip is actually enjoy the process. So it's very important for us to also enjoy what it is that we are doing, and that is also where mindfulness comes in. So when you are mindful, you also have this choice to set aside whatever past experiences or emotions that you carry about what is not at the present moment, so that you can fully enjoy whatever it is in front of you.
All right, ma'am. So I learned a lot from this conversation, and hearing from a licensed psychologist and a mindfulness trainer is a privilege on its own. So I hope that I can apply these learnings within me as a student and also in personal aspects of my life. So this will surely help our viewers. So, ma'am, thank you so much for this. And do you have anything else to say to our viewers? Any additional tips?
This extraordinary times, it actually calls for extraordinary compassion, and it begins with the self. So choose to be kind and begin by being kind to yourself. Be mindful of the words that you repeat to yourself, because these actually determine the changes that will occur in your life. So I hope you guys learned a lot, and thank you also, Pamela, for this opportunity, and I wish you well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining this talk, Ma'am Jamie.
I learned a lot from that interview as a psychology student and also as a person who practices mindfulness. I hope you've taken notes from that and tried to apply it in your own ways and pace. Once again, I'm Pam, and thank you for watching my Psych Talk on mindfulness.